And welcome back to episode number 200 of Scott Swing Sports. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with my parents for episode number 200 of Scott Swing Sports. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to do our predictions for the week. Let's get into those right now. First up, tomorrow night, Virginia Tech and Miami. Miami favored by 19.5 points. I will take Miami at home. I think Miami's been playing very well since the beginning of the season, so I'll take Miami at home over Virginia Tech.
I agree with Scott. I think Miami's a class of the ACC. I think Miami will make the college playoff. I like Miami in this one. I'm not sure they'll cover the spread, but I do believe they'll win.
I agree with Scott and Kevin. I'm going with Miami.
Next up, Kentucky and Ole Miss. I think I know which way my dad's going to go in this game, but I'm going to disagree with my dad on this one. I'm going to take Ole Miss at home. I think Ole Miss is a much better team than Kentucky is, so I'm going to take Ole Miss at home to get it done over Kentucky.
And you'd be wrong, sir.
Oh.
I actually think Ole Miss is going to win this one. For Terry Jewell, I'd like to pick Kentucky, but Ole Miss is just too good.
Yep.
Ole Miss gets a win, and I think it's going to be a blowout, unfortunately.
Yay.
I pick Ole Miss at home as well. Sorry, Terry.
Next up, Minnesota and Michigan. I'm going to go with Michigan. I think Michigan proved to me last week they're still good. So I'll take Michigan at home to get it done over Minnesota.
I agree with Scott. I think Michigan will win. I do think it'll be closer than most people expect because Michigan will have a letdown after the USC victory, but give me Michigan at home.
I'll take Michigan at home as well. How come they have so many home games in a row?
I don't know.
Because they're Michigan.
Next up, Oklahoma State and Kansas State. Both teams in desperate need of a win coming off of a loss last week. I don't think a team is going to start 0-2 in the Big 12 and then make it to Dallas. So I'm going to go with Kansas State here at home. I think Kansas State's going to do enough here at home to get it done against Oklahoma State.
Of all the games last week, the most surprising result was Kansas State getting blown out by BYU. I think that exposed Kansas State. I think Oklahoma State gets the win on the road.
I'm also going to pick Oklahoma State for our friends Dina, Cheryl, and Paula in Oklahoma. So go OSU.
Next up, BYU and Baylor. I'm going to take the upset. I think Baylor's a little bit better right now. I think Baylor's going to take advantage of a BYU team that's going to be a little bit too excited over their win last week. They're going to be feeling themselves a little bit. And Baylor's going to be pissed off after last week. So I'm going to take Baylor at home over BYU.
I think it's a good pick, but I'm going to go the other way. I think BYU will have a letdown. I think it'll be a very close game, but I think BYU is just more talented than Baylor. Give me BYU.
I'm going to pick Baylor at home. That crushing loss last week against Colorado in overtime was just heartbreaking. So I'm sure Baylor's going to regroup, and I'm going to pick Baylor to win at home.
Next up, Wisconsin and USC. With USC looking to get back on track after last week. I think they do. I'll take USC at home over Wisconsin.
I'm going to pick the upset here. I think Wisconsin's going to control the football. I think they're going to run the ball down USC's throat, much like Michigan did. I'm going to pick the upset. Wisconsin gets the win on the road.
I'm also going to pick Wisconsin. It's still hard to sort of understand why USC is in the Big Ten. So I'm going to pick Wisconsin for the win.
Next up, Louisville and Notre Dame. Notre Dame at home. I will take the Irish. I think Notre Dame's a little bit better than Louisville is right now. So I'll take Notre Dame to keep their hopes of making the college football playoff alive here and get the win at home over Louisville.
I don't know how good Notre Dame is. They go, they beat Texas A&M, they lose to Northern Illinois. I'm actually going to take Louisville to win this game on the road. I think Louisville is actually a better team than Notre Dame, so give me Louisville on this one.
Since they're playing at home, I'm going to take Notre Dame at home over Louisville.
Next up, Oklahoma and Auburn. Oklahoma looking for a much better performance than what they saw last week. And Auburn also looking for their first SEC win this year. I'm going to go with Oklahoma on the road. I think Oklahoma's going to find a way to get their first SEC win this week on the road over Auburn.
I'm going to pick Oklahoma as well. This is more me not having a lot of confidence in Auburn than having confidence in Oklahoma. But I think Oklahoma will win in a close one.
I'm going to pick Auburn just because I still can't understand why Oklahoma's in the SEC.
Next up, Arkansas and Texas A&M. I'm going to go with A&M at home. I think A&M's been looking pretty good so far this year, so I'll go with Texas A&M at home over Arkansas.
I agree with Scott. I think it will be a close game. I think Texas A&M is a very inconsistent team, but I do think they'll get the win at home.
I also picked Texas A&M at home.
Next up, Mississippi State and Texas. I think this game's over once Texas lands Once Texas joins the field for a kickoff, I think this game's over. I'll take Texas at home big over at Mississippi State. Mississippi State might be the worst team in the Power Four this year, so I'll take Texas at home over Mississippi State.
I agree. This is going to be a blowout. Mississippi State has really fallen since the Dan Mullen years. Give me Texas by a big margin.
Texas, big, huge.
Next
against-
up,
Hey, you're cutting me off. Okay.
next up, Ohio State and Michigan State. I think Ryan Day is very focused this year. I'm going to go with Ohio State to get the win on the road over Michigan State.
I agree. I think, the game being on the road, it'll be a little closer than people expect, but Ohio State is clearly the class of the Big Ten. I think the Buckeyes get the win here.
I'm going to pick Michigan State just because I have family in Michigan. They love Michigan State, and it's always fun to root against Ohio State. So I'll pick Michigan State.
Next up, Stanford and Clemson. I will take Clemson. I think Dabo's got a good team this year again. So I'll take Clemson at home over Stanford.
I think Clemson kind of found themselves last week against NC State. I think they'll continue to roll and beat Stanford by at least 2 touchdowns.
I'll pick Clemson. Are they playing at home?
Yes.
Is it Stanford?
Yes.
Stanford.
Oh,
Yes.
yes. I'll pick
The
Clemson.
Cardinals.
Next up, Houston and Iowa State. The only reason I might give Houston a chance here is that they're at home, but I'm going to take Iowa State on the road to find a way to get the win on the road over Houston.
I agree. I think Iowa State is one of the 4 best teams in the Big 12. I think Iowa State gets the win at Houston.
I'll pick Iowa State also. Go Cyclones.
Next up, Illinois and Penn State. I will go with Penn State. I think Drew Aller's been playing very well so far this year. I'm going to take Penn State over Illinois.
Illinois actually surprised me going into Nebraska and winning that ball game. And so I actually think that I'm going to pick the upset and pick Illinois in this one.
Are they playing at home?
Penn State is, yes.
Yeah, I'll pick Penn State. Hard to win. I mean, hard to lose when you're playing at home.
Next up, South Alabama and LSU. I'm going to go with LSU. Ryan Kelly's got this team playing very well right now. So I'll go with LSU at home over South Alabama.
I don't think LSU is a great team, but they're playing a pretty weak team in South Alabama, so give me the Tigers.
Isn't this early in the season to have a cupcake game?
No.
No?
Each team has about 2, so.
Oh, I'll pick LSU.
Next up, Washington State heading in to Albertson Stadium to take on Boise. Somehow Boise State's in the top 25. I don't get it. I think UCF should be in this spot. But I'm going to go with Ashton Jetty and Boise State. He's probably one of the best running backs in college football this year. So I'm going to go with Boise State at home over Washington State.
I think Washington State's going to get the win on the road here. Washington State had an impressive win against Washington. I think the Cougars get the win on the road.
It's Beavers versus Broncos. I'm going to go with the Beavers. Go Washington
That's
State.
Oregon State, but close.
Oh, yes, it's Oregon State.
Next up, Arizona and Utah. Before my
close.
mom messes up again,
So close.
I'm gonna take Utah at home. I think Utah is a better team right now than Arizona. Arizona just doesn't have a defense, so I'll take Utah at home over Arizona.
Utah really impressed me against Oklahoma State. They've got one of the best defenses in the country. I agree. I think Utah gets the win.
I'll vote for Utah.
Next up, Oregon and UCLA. I'll go with Oregon. I think Oregon's looking very good. Dylan Gabriel's playing well, so I'll take Oregon on the road over UCLA.
UCLA showed me a lot more than I thought they had against LSU last week, but I still think Oregon's better. I think Oregon gets the win.
I'm gonna pick UCLA because I'm over Dylan Gabriel and all the teams that he plays for. So
Next up, Colorado and UCF. Big game Saturday. Big noon Saturday is going to be here on Saturday morning. DJ Khaled's going to be performing, so that's going to be interesting. I'm going to take UCF to find a way to win this game. I think UCF's going to win this game. I think the running game of RJ Harvey and the running backs are going to make the big difference in this game. I'll take UCF to find a way to get the win. But I wouldn't be shocked to see Colorado lose based on how my week's been going. So I'll take UCF at home.
I think UCF will also win. Colorado's got the 100th ranked rushing defense in the country. That's UCF's strength. I don't think it's a good matchup for Colorado. With that said, the point spread's been between 14 and 15 and a half.
Yep.
I do think Colorado will cover the spread, but I do think UCF will win at home.
Yeah.
I'm picking the Knights at home. Hopefully they'll be able to pull out a win. Colorado seems so one-dimensional, and that game last week against Baylor was just heartbreaking for Baylor. So hopefully the Knights are at home. They're going to be able to do enough to get the win. So go Knights!
Next up, the college game day. Game of the week. College game day will be there bright and early Saturday morning. Georgia and Alabama from Tuscaloosa. Should be an excellent game. I'm going to take Alabama at home. I think Alabama's a little bit better. And Kirby Smart just needs to prove to me that he can beat Alabama when it matters. So I'll take Alabama at home over Georgia.
I think last week was a wake-up call for Georgia against Kentucky in a very close game. I think Georgia is going to get their offense going, and I think they will actually win on the road against Alabama.
I'll pick the Dogs big.
Next up, now into the NFL games for the weekend. First up, Cowboys and Giants tonight on Amazon Prime Video. If I'll be able to watch this game, we'll see. We'll see if we have power tonight. I'm going to take Dallas. I think Dallas is a little bit better than the Giants. Even though the Giants did get a nice win last week against the Browns, I'll take Dak and the Cowboys to get it done on the road over the Giants.
I'm going to take the Cowboys as well, but I don't have a lot of confidence in the Cowboys. It's really mainly because I think the Giants aren't very good. But give me the Cowboys in a very close game on the road.
I agree 100% with what Kev said. Dallas on the road wins.
Next up, New Orleans and Atlanta. I'm going to go with the Falcons. I think Kirk Cousins is going to start playing a little better, even though the Falcons are 0-2 at home this year. I'll take Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons to find a way to get a win at home over the Saints.
It pains me to say this, but I think the Saints have had a better overall season. I think they're playing better defense than the Falcons. I think the Saints win in a very close one in Atlanta.
This is tough. They're both so good this season. I like Kirky and the Falcons, but the Saints look so good. So, flip a coin. Where are they playing?
In Atlanta.
Yeah, I'll pick the Falcons.
Yeah. Next up, the Rams and the Bears from Soldier Field. Give me the Rams. I think Caleb Williams is in for another rough day. This offensive line can't protect him, so I'll take the Rams on the road over the Bears.
I think the Rams are going to have a letdown after their win against San Francisco last week. They're on the road in Chicago. I think the Bears get this done.
This is also a flip for me. It's hard for teams to go east from the west, and the Bears seem like they're a mess. So the Rams kind of seem like they're figuring things out. So I'm going to go with the Rams.
Yeah. Next up, the Vikings and the Packers. Lambeau Field. Jordan Love could be back this week, so I'm going to take the Packers at home over the Vikings.
Vikings are definitely one of the surprise teams this year. Sam Darnold has played incredibly well, but it is in Green Bay. I think it's going to be a really close game. I like the Packers by a field goal.
I'm going to pick the Vikings. I think Sam Darnold and Jefferson, they're doing good together, and Minnesota seems like they're rolling, so I'm going to pick the Vikings.
Okay. Next up, the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into Indy to take on the Colts. I'm going to go with the Steelers. I think big game from Najee Harris here. Colts have one of the worst run defenses in the NFL, so I'll go with the Steelers on the road to get it done over the Colts.
Pretty much every season, the Colts seem to get an upset at home against a really good team. It could happen this week, but I think the Steelers are going to get the win, but in a very, very close contest.
Yeah, I was saying.
I think the Steelers are going to go 4-0, unfortunately. Steelers.
Did you hear
go.
that, Terry?
I'm
Unfortunately.
sorry, Terry, but
See?
everyone's got to lose sometimes. So, but I don't think it's going to be this week for the Steelers.
Next up, the Denver Broncos coming off their surprising win last week. A win that I'm not going to talk about much after how embarrassing it was. As they head into MetLife Stadium to take on Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. I'm going to go with the Jets. I think the Jets have started to figure things out after that loss to San Francisco back in week 1. So I'm going to take the Jets at home over the Broncos.
I don't like either team. I'm not a Sean Payton fan. I'm certainly not an Aaron Rodgers fan. But I think the Broncos played awfully well last week, but I don't think they get back-to-back road wins. I think the Jets get the win here, but it will be close.
This is basically a pick between two teams. Like, who cares? I'm going to pick the Jets.
Next up, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from Raymond James Stadium. Both teams coming in with injuries. No Devontae Smith, no A.J. Brown, and then the Eagles have one more starter out this week. I can't remember his name. And then the Bucs are without Antoine Whitfield, probably without Vita Vea for another week, and potentially Kalaji Kancey out again this week. So I'm going to go with Tampa Bay. I think they're going to be really upset after what happened last week. I think the Bucs are going to find a way to stop Saquon Barkley this week in the run game, and I think we get the job done. I'll take Tampa Bay at home over the Eagles.
I'm picking this more with my heart than my head. I think that the Bucs get the win in large part because of the injuries Scott just mentioned to the two best wide receivers on Philadelphia. So I think the Bucs win in a very close game.
I'm gonna pick the Bucs because I'm a homer. Go
Uh,
Bucs!
Next up, the Bengals and the Panthers. This is the last week. This might be the last week I ever picked this team this year. I'll take Joe Burrow on the Bengals to find a way to win this game. I think Andy Dalton was a flash in the pan last week. I don't believe that he's going to do this again this week against his former team. I'll go with Joe Burrow and the Bengals to get the win on the road over the Panthers.
Two teams that are probably coming off the most surprising results from last week. The Panthers on a positive end, the Bengals on a negative end. I just don't think Burrow is going to allow them to go 0-4. I think the Bengals find a way to get a win on the road.
Kev is verbalizing perfectly all my thoughts.
Awesome.
I'm gonna go with the Bengals. Who would have thought the Bengals would be 0-4 or 0-3? So I'm gonna go with the Bengals.
Next up, the Jags and the Texans. Like I said on YouTube earlier this week, C.J. Stroud's had a horrible start to his fantasy season. But here come the Jacksonville Jaguars, probably one of the worst teams in the NFL. I'm going to go with C.J. Stroud to throw 4 touchdowns this week, so I can hopefully beat my dad in fantasy this week. I'll go with the Texans at home over the Jags.
I also agree with Scott. I think the Texans are going to have a big game. The Jaguars' defense is awful. If you watch their game against Buffalo, they couldn't stop anything. So I think the Texans will win by 2 touchdowns or more.
Oh, I'm gonna go against these two, and I'm gonna pick the Jags. Everyone says Doug Peterson's coaching for his life, so go Jags.
Next up, the Commanders and the Cardinals. Talk about no defense. This game could end like 30-35, something like that. But I'm going to go with Arizona. I think the Cardinals are a little bit better. I think Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels are both in for big days here. I'm going to go with the Cardinals on the road at home of the Commanders.
Only thing that gives me pause in this game is the fact the Cardinals are at home, but the Commanders look awfully good offensively against the Bengals. I actually think the Commanders will find a way to win on the road.
I'm going to pick the Cardinals just because they're at home.
Next up, the Patriots and the 49ers. Give me Brock Purdy and the Niners to find a way to win this game. I think they may be without Christian McCaffrey for the entire season. I mean, he had to go to Germany to get his ankle checked out. So I'm going to go with San Francisco at home over the Patriots.
Both teams are not playing particularly good football right now, but the 49ers are at home. I think they've got a better coach. I think the 49ers get the win.
I agree.
Next up, the Browns and the Raiders. 2 teams coming off horrible losses last week. Probably the 2 worst losses I saw in the NFL last week. But I'm going to go with Vegas because they're at home. I think they're going to bounce back. I would not be shocked to see the Browns win this game, but I'm going to go with Vegas at home over the Browns.
I agree with Scott. I think in a very low-scoring game with 2 offensively challenged teams, only because they're at home, I'm going to take the Raiders over the Browns.
Me too. Go Raiders.
Next up, the Chiefs and the Chargers. Justin Herbert may not even play in this game. I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs to finally win in a convincing fashion this week. All 3 of their games so far this year have been by 1 possession. I don't think this game is going to be that way, so I'll take Kansas City on the road in LA over the Chargers.
I actually agree with Scott. I think the Chiefs will win, but I think they'll make it close. They seem to play up or down to their opponents. I think somehow it'll be last drive by Mahomes in a game-winning field goal. So I will take the Chiefs, but in a close one.
I'm going to pick the Chargers. Who's with me when everyone's over the Chiefs?
Next up, the Buffalo Bills heading into Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Sunday Night Football. I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. I think the Ravens are in desperate need to get back on track. They looked good last week against the Cowboys. I think they keep that going this week. I'll take Lamar Jackson and the Ravens to get it done at home over the Bills.
I'm going to base this just on what I've seen so far, and the Bills have just played better football consistently throughout the season. They may have a letdown at some point, but I think the Bills are going to go into Baltimore and get the win by a touchdown.
Is this Monday Night Football?
This is Sunday night.
Ooh, this is a good game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to pick the Bills. Sorry, Steve and Joey.
Next up, a game that nobody's going to watch on Monday night. between Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans going against whoever's starting quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. I said it on YouTube earlier this week. 2 pick sixes and a field goal wins this game for the Dolphins. I'm going to go with Miami at home over the Titans.
I'll be watching the game only because I'm playing the Dolphins defense against you in fantasy football.
I think I am.
Oh, you're right.
I'm starting the Dolphins defense.
Whoops. That may change my pick. No, I'm still going to take the Dolphins. I think at home, the Titans are just terrible offensively. They turn the ball over too much. I think the Dolphins get the win in a very low-scoring, boring game.
Dolphins get the win at home on Monday Night Football.
Let's see.
You have them. I was in the wrong league. You got it.
Yes. Just checked. Finally, the other Monday night game this week is actually good, as it'll be Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks heading into Detroit to take on Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions. I'm going to go with Seattle. I think I've heard a lot of people say that the Lions just cannot beat Seattle. So I'm going to go with Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks to stay undefeated and get the win on the road over the Lions.
This game was in Seattle. I would definitely take the Seahawks, but because it's in Detroit, I think Detroit is going to get the win, but it'll be a very close game.
This is a good Monday Night Football game. I'm going to pick the Lions. Go Detroit at home on Monday Night Football.
And that will do it for this episode of Scott Speaking Sports. I'll be back next week. And I'll see you guys right back here next week on Scott Speaking Sports. See ya.
See you
See
guys.
you guys.